Well, this is it's quite a turnout. I'm surprised. You know, when Jonathan asked me to do this, I was hoping we'd get 6 or 8 people, but this is great. So. But we're in a bar, right? So let's start with a toast. Raise your glasses. Here's to a long life and a happy one, a quick death and an easy one, a pretty girl and an honest one, and a cold beer and another one. Cheers! Well, it is an honor to be here. It really is. It's a joy to be able to stand here and the theology on tap. So we got alcohol and religion. How many wars were started with that? But we're here. We're with like-minded people. We're spending time together. We're socializing. It's wonderful, wonderful stuff. I would like to thank you all for coming, but I'd also like to point out, where's Jonathan? Right here. Give this guy a big round of applause. Here's the energy and a big wave behind this activity and a lot of stuff around town. Jonathan does a great job. He called me about a month ago and said, "Hey, Deacon Jim, you want to do Theology on Tap? We're going to start it out in Montgomery County." And I said, "Well, sure. I live right here in Rockville and St. Patrick's." And I said, "I'd love to." And he says, "Okay, well, that's good because I called Cardinal Wuerl and he couldn't make it." And I said, "Oh, not a problem. I mean, Cardinal Wuerl's a busy guy and he can't make everything." So he goes, "Yeah, but then I also called Monsignor John Ensler, who's head of Catholic Charities, and he couldn't make it." And I said, "Well, great. I don't mind being behind those two." I said, "I'm third string." He goes, "No." Called Father Bill Byrne. He couldn't make it either. Right? So yeah. Right. So I'm not sure how many people were on that list till you got me, but here I am, and I am actually happy to be here. It's wonderful to be able to talk in public, talk just about our faith and about what's going on in our lives and what's important in our lives. So tonight what I was going to do is, the topic is, service in a self-serving world, and talk about that in a couple of ways. I'm going to share some of my faith story, just tell you a little bit about that and how that maybe fits into all that. Talk about service, talk about, maybe why we serve, and then some maybe hopefully practical applications of that. And then we'll have some questions, and as Andrew mentioned, for the last 25, 30 years or so, I've had a hobby. I play in bands and play in bars, and so I like to think of myself as a singer-songwriter. So I'll play a couple tunes for you too, if you want to do so. But I'll talk to you. So I'm born and bred in D.C. I was born at Georgetown University Hospital. Grew up in Bethesda at St. Jane de Chantal. Do we have anybody from St. Jane de Chantal here? Yeah, I thought we had some. Nice. So I grew up, in fact, I still have a number of my brothers here. I was the oldest of 9 boys. And so I still have some of my brothers, 3 or 4 of them still live in St. Jane de Chantal. My parents still live in St. Jane de Chantal. And then, so I grew up cradle Catholic, went to DeChantal, and went to Gonzaga High School in D.C. Yes, yeah, go Eagles. And then the University of Maryland, where I met, Catholic Turks. We got some Catholic Turks in here, right? All right. Went to the University of Maryland, where I met the love of my life, just a wonderful person that's true. She's not here. She'd get mad if I said this. If she was here, she'd be mad at me. But anyway, so we met and married while I was still in school, and we've been married 40 years. We have 4 children, and as Andrew said, we have 13 grandchildren because we got 12 that are out, and we got 1 baby that's on the way, but we're pro-life, so we count that one, right? So we got 13 grandchildren, and it's great. We're so very, very blessed. And, through all of that, I would say we've had, sort of a normal cradle Catholic upbringing. But I will tell you one thing. 2 times in my life, I've had a very, very unique and blessed experience. And I don't know what to call it. I guess I could call it a mystical experience, although I'm certainly no mystic. Where I felt and knew the presence of God. I mean, it was palatable. It was something that you couldn't deny, and you couldn't sustain it. I've read other people that have had this experience, mystics, John of the Cross, Teresa of Avila, Ignatius of Loyola. And what they tried to describe and what I'm trying to tell you now seem very similar to me. And it's been very formative for me. And it happened once, maybe, before I was married, and it happened about 20 years ago. St. Teresa of Calcutta has mentioned this thing too, that, it sort of comes on us, and it's just an overwhelming knowledge that there is a God, and that He totally, totally, totally loves us, and He totally, totally, totally gets us. You know, He knows us more than we know ourselves in many ways. And I mention that, you know, not because I'm special in any way, because I'm not. I did nothing to deserve or earn this in any way. And I recognize it's a great, great gift and a blessing to have this experience. And, you know, maybe some others here have had a similar experience. But I'll say this about my personal faith. It's both mundane and miraculous. I think the mundane is what we do all the time, every day. You know, when we're young, we do what our parents tell us, hopefully sometimes, and you know, we sort of go to church, and then we find our own way. And if you look back on life, and you see that, you know, most of the time, you know, it's just sort of cruising along, but there are these miraculous events. You know, I think of when I met my wife. You know, if I wasn't at the same place she was at this one party, we'd have never met. You know, we wouldn't have been married 40 years and have all these kids and everything. You know, I think of certain events in my life that took place, and I know to the bottom of my soul that was the hand of God. And so I think that's the first sort of point I'd like to make this evening, is that we all share this. You know, we all share these lives that are just screaming along, especially in this time of, you know, in this age. It's just, you know, busy and school and jobs and everything going on, and that's good. You know, I mean, that's normal. That's life. But then there's this whole sort of miraculous spiritual thing that's right there. It's right with us, and when we can pay attention to that, that's the joy that we feel in our faith. And so I did have that experience, and it has sustained me through all this. And what I think it does for all of us is it calls us to something, you know, and it calls us to lots of things. It calls us to grow in holiness. It calls us to somehow respond to that. Tonight we're going to talk specifically about a response in service. And I want to talk a little bit about why. I mean, why do stuff? You know, why do these things that Andrew mentioned and that there's available out there? And so, go all the way back to the beginning. You know, when we were baptized, we were given 3 jobs, right? We were given 3 jobs when we were baptized. And anybody remember what they are? Who paid attention in CCD? Right? Let's see if we know. That a girl, yeah. Priest, prophet, and king, PPK, all right? That's our jobs. All of us that are baptized, all of us that are Catholics, Christians, all of us that are the body of Christ here on earth, that's our job. That's what we're supposed to be doing right now, all the time. You know? Priest, prophet, and king. Okay, our priestly role is to, you know, adore the Lord, participate in the sacraments, and prayerful reflection. You know, we all have that role. Every one of us has a priestly role. Okay? How about a prophet? What does a prophet do? Prophets are teachers, right? So a prophet's a person, so we're all also called to teach this thing that we know, this faith that we have. All right? And so, and this St. Francis of Assisi, our Pope took his name. What did he say about teaching? Well, we teach and preach constantly. And sometimes we use words, right? So it's the idea that we live this lifestyle of knowing that there is a God that loves us, that created all things, and it's part of who we are. So first we pray, we adore, we worship, we take advantage of the sacraments and the grace of the sacraments. Second, we also participate as teachers, you know, just living the lifestyle, living the Christian lifestyle, so that people can learn from us by our actions. Actions speak louder than words, right? And then the third thing, kings. How are we kings? How are we kings? Are we lording our faith over people? Do we make decrees of this is what we're supposed to do? Jesus was a king, right? We call Jesus the king. How was he king? What did he say about what he was doing? He says, I came to serve, not to be served. And the first amongst you will be the greatest, or the last amongst you will be the first will be last. Right? So when we talk about the priest, prophet, and king that we're all supposed to be doing here to grow in holiness as we're on earth, when we talk about this kingship, we're talking about something that is servants to all. Okay? Right? Jesus literally gave himself totally to all of us. He literally gave us his body. Right? That's how that worked out. So when we talk about priests, prophets, and kings, we're talking about our kingship is to serve, is to be servants to all. Interestingly, our church has incorporated this infrastructure this model in our infrastructure. So we have people, and a couple of them here, that are priests, okay? And we all have the role of worship and participating in the sacraments. So our priests are our leaders in that, okay? So they have they're ordained to a particular ministry. They're indelibly marked to help all of us, including themselves, in the worship and in participating in the sacraments. Who are the guys that are the teachers? Somebody knows this. Who are the teachers in our church? Anybody know? Who's the top dog teacher who lives in Rome? The Pope, right? And the Pope is the what? He's the what is of Rome. He's something of Rome. Anybody yell it out? Where's my girl in there? Bishop of Rome. Thank you. Yeah, so our bishops are our teachers. That's the way this church is structured. The bishops are the teachers in the church. Okay? Who are the kings? Who are the kings in our church? Who knows? The deacons are the kings. Yeah. See, diaconia means to serve. See, so we have this infrastructure. I'm not making this up. It's just true stuff. I'm going to get t-shirts that say deacons are kings, pass them out, sell them to something. Yeah, see, the deacons are the kings. So the diaconia means to serve. The idea of the restored diaconate is that it helps, as Andrew said, it gives us a job to go out and has people that are in charge, they're ordained and indelibly marked to help all of us in service. So it's very important for me to be here tonight and talk about service, and we do it. So to answer the question, why do we serve? We serve because we're made that way. Each of these three things are equally important. And Pope Benedict had an encyclical, and he said that service and charitable works is as important as preaching and teaching the gospel and participating in the sacraments. One is not more important than the other. We're called to do all three things. Service is not extra credit. It's not something we do because we're nice people. We do it because we're human. That's what makes us human. We do those three things, and that's what makes us human. Okay? So service is equally important to participating in the sacraments, teaching our faith by what we say and what we do, and then acting in a charitable way to those around us. So to answer the question, why do we serve? We serve because that's the way God made us. Okay? It's equally important. It's a three-legged stool. So let's talk a little bit about how. Some maybe practical things. How do we serve? What are some reasons to serve? And I think one of the first one of the first things, one of the advice, I guess, or just an observation, is we have to have an awareness of our surroundings and those in need. I remember I was struggling with this years and years ago, and I had a good Jesuit priest that I could talk to. He was a great guy. He's gone to the Lord now. But I told him, I went to him and I said, hey, look, Father, there's a lot of poor people out there. And I could take everything I have and sell it tomorrow and take it down to our shelter on Martin Luther King Avenue Southeast and give out all my money. And then I'd be part of the problem and not part of the solution, because that money would be gone in a week, and then I'm living in the shelter too. I said, how do we do this? I mean, how do we give, constantly? He said, no. I said, you don't have to give up everything you have and become full of yourself. He says, but you have to be aware that it's out there. We have to be aware that there are brothers and sisters that are out there, and then live accordingly. Okay? Let me try to give you a practical application. How many people driving around Montgomery County, I know you all have and done, see on the street corner folks that are standing there with a sign that says, I'm injured and I need some money, or I have 3 kids and I need some money, and I need some money. And they're standing in there, they're walking up and down the line at the thing, right? We've all seen that, right? How many times do we roll down and give them money? Now, here's the point. I think that here's what I'm going to suggest. Here's my practical suggestion to everybody. And I've made this a bit of a habit in the last 20 years or so. Not that long. Okay. carry some change, okay? Everybody's got change. You go to McDonald's, you get a little leftover change, you throw it in your ashtray, you stick it in your pocket. But make it a point to carry around a couple of quarters. And when you go and you see those people, instead of trying to ignore them or turn on the radio or talk on your phone or whatever you do to ignore them, don't ignore them. Don't ignore them. Roll your window down. Talk to them. Okay? Just, hey, what's your name? Right at the corner of Georgia and Norbeck, there's always somebody. It's a very popular little spot for these folks. And there's John and there's Mary Ann, who doesn't do very good English. I think Mary Ann is her name. And then there's a guy named Larry, who's in a wheelchair sometimes. And they're there and they know who I am. Hi, I'm Jim. And you don't have to say much, just hi, how you doing? How's it going today? Like you'd say something to somebody, in line at the grocery store, or just treat them like you would anybody else and give them a quarter. Okay? Give them a quarter. Believe me, they appreciate the quarter. All right? And it makes us aware. Okay? It makes us treat these people like, because, there's the whole argument too, and I had this with a priest just the other day. He said, well, I don't give them money because, they're going to take that money and they're going to run over to the liquor store and they're going to buy liquor or something else. And I remember this like it was yesterday, and this was a long time ago, St. John the Evangelist. Anybody here from St. John the Evangelist? I was there in that parish, and we had a discussion like this going on. Well, I'm not giving them money because, they got money, or they're going to take it out, and they're going to buy drugs, or they're going to buy whiskey. And one of the ladies in the group says, you think those people want whiskey? And we said, yeah, they're going to buy whiskey with it. And she goes, well, then we should just give them whiskey. And it made perfect sense to me. If that's what they want, give it to them. We're not here to judge. We don't know what they're doing. We have no idea. And if they make the bad choice with it, well, that's their bad choice. But our choice is to be open to them and comforting to them, and just even a little way. And I did this yesterday. Knowing I was coming here tonight, I wanted to check this out. At that intersection, and I sat there for a little while and did a couple of, just counted the cars. There were about 20 cars per light. It was 2-minute light, so 10 cars per minute. Okay, 10 cars per minute. If everybody that came by there gave those people a quarter, and if you do the math, it ends up being $150 an hour, $6,000 a week, $300,000 a year you'd make standing on that quarter if people gave you a quarter. Standing on that corner if people gave you a quarter. We could eliminate poverty if half the people gave people just a quarter, just a quarter. So, that may not happen, but let's do our part. Give them a quarter. And it puts it in your mind. It's just an awareness thing. It's something that we're not turning away from people. We're not ignoring them. We're not afraid of them. Some of them are sort of dirty, and some of them are probably scamming us. They're fine, and they're just getting money. And some of them are going to go buy liquor and drugs and everything else. That's not for us to decide. Okay? That's not for us to decide. So that's the first practical thing I'll mention to you is keep some change, give them a quarter. And say, hi, I'm Jim, what's your name, how you been, have a good day, see you, all right? Here's another one, another practical bit of information, I guess. Charity begins at home, right? We've heard that before. Charity begins at home. We can't be charitable. If you're a rat bastard at home and then go down and help out at the shelter, you think you're going to be considered a charitable person? No way. It begins at home. It begins with the wonderful relationships that we have with our spouses, for those of you that are married, and for our close friends and our family. And that's where it blooms from that. It's from that relationship that we have with each other that the overflow of this, charitable works comes from. That's why I'm a deacon, is because, my wife is an incredibly generous woman, and she puts up with me, and we have, a wonderful relationship, and so I'm able to bring some of that out into the community. And so charity does begin at home. And I would suggest, too, for those that are maybe still haven't found your soulmate and are looking for somebody to spend your life with, there's nothing more attractive to anybody than a loving individual. If somebody is a loving individual, you're going to be more attractive. That's more attractive than good looks or money or power or intelligence or any of that stuff. So charity begins at home. It begins with those intimate, personal relationships that we have with the people that are closest in our life. So, an awareness. Charity begins at home. The last little thing I'll mention as sort of a practical thing is, and Andrew mentioned it earlier, get involved in community. Okay, what you guys are doing here tonight. It's great to do things on our own, but we are a communal church, and we need to do things together. And the power of that grows, it multiplies. It multiplies in huge ways when we get together with people. When 2 and 3 are gathered in my name, incredible things happen. But I'll say this, and I work for a social service agency that gets a lot of volunteers, or we try to get a lot of volunteers. When you go and you offer your services, you say, hey, I'm doing priest, prophet, and king. I'm being a king. I want to help out here and do some stuff. Keep in mind that you're helping, the community. You're helping the other thing. It's not about you, okay? And that doesn't mean that we don't want to bring our own talents and treasures and time that we have and utilize it the best we can. But don't go into a volunteer situation thinking, what am I going to get out of it? You'll get plenty out of it. If you help others, you will feel the joy of God's presence in your life. It will be there, I promise you. But you don't have, my friends are old. I'm old, right? So, I get folks that are now retired, and they'll say, okay, hey, Jim, I just retired, and I want to be a mentor for 25 to 31-year-olds in the business world, So what do you got for me? And I said, nothing. I got nothing. You just say, I want to help, and then let the people that need the help tell you what they need, and do that to the best of your ability. Okay, so I think that's important, is that you will get the joy of giving and the joy of service and God's presence in our lives. But I think it's sometimes it just takes a minute to say, okay, I'm here to do what you need, not to help me feel good about for whatever I'm trying to do. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah. Really, I don't have a whole lot more to say. I wasn't expecting this kind of crowd. I think this is great. I could probably take a few questions at this point and then play a few songs. Anybody, does that make sense? Does that make sense when I'm talking about service here? So, if you have, if we're human, and we are, and we want to be priests, prophets, and kings, we want to live that three-legged stool of holiness, and don't want, it's not just extra credit that we do this service. That's the lifestyle that we want to do. So that's what I've got to offer for you this afternoon, this evening. So God bless you all. Thank you. Any questions? Does anybody have a question? Question, yeah.
Simple question, yes or no? Do you believe in miracles?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I see them all the time. I think that's what I was talking about earlier with the, there are miracles happening constantly. Some of them you just got to pay attention to. And I love asking people how they met if they're married. How did you meet? And some of the stories are incredible because, this person was in a weird place at a weird time, and the other person was in a weird place at a weird time, and they met, and then that's a miracle. It just is. It's providence. It's not serendipity that those kinds of things happen. So absolutely. Yes, sir.
What are some of your duties
as a deacon? Great question. The diaconate, just real quick there, is an ordained ministry. Okay. For those that want to enter into the diaconate, and it's only for men now at this point, you would enter into a discernment year, and then you have 4 years, so it's a 5-year program. It took me 8, but that's another story. And then you have roles liturgically, so a deacon participates in Mass. There are some sacramental roles. A deacon can be the celebrant at a baptism, can receive the vows at a wedding. So I do a lot of weddings. I love weddings. And preach. Deacons can preach. And then diaconia, the whole point of the whole diaconate, and why it's a ministry, is hopefully that those individuals are the ones that are in your parish, helping the parish to serve. Okay, so that's the roles of deacons. Thank you. If anybody here, by the way, wants to talk more about being a deacon, give me a call. I'd be happy to point you in the right direction, or at least talk about it. It's a calling. It's a calling. When I was a friend of mine mentioned to me about 20 years ago. He said, "You should be a deacon." And I laughed at him. I said, "You one of those old guys that think you're an altar boy, you want me to do that?" He said, "Yeah." And when I found out what it was all about, it was just more, I could feel the presence of God calling me. It's a calling. It's a wonderful blessing for me, and I hope for the church. Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned Catholic Charities. What do you do?
Thank you very much. So she asked, what do I do for Catholic Charities? Catholic Charities, for those of you that don't know, is our church's, the Archdiocese of Washington's social service agency. Okay. How many people do you think work at Catholic Charities? Guess. Anybody guess? How many people do you think work at Catholic Charities? In the Archdiocese of Washington? 900. 900 people work for Catholic Charities in the Archdiocese of Washington. And I'm talking nationally. It's a big outfit. Big outfit. I had no idea. I was a deacon in the diocese. I started there 3 years ago. I had a career in the corporate world before that. Started there 3 years ago. Had no clue what was going on. Catholic Charities has dental clinics and medical clinics. We house about 1,400 people a night in shelters. We have programs for the disabled. We have programs for the mentally ill. We have sanctuaries for life. We got all kinds of stuff. So I just want to give that as a framework because it's a big agency. But we had a new CEO about 3 years ago. Monsignor John Ensler took over Catholic Charities. He's a parish priest for all his life until that. Okay? Previous, it was social workers that ran it. As soon as he got on board, he recognized that Catholic Charities is an agency, a big agency, does all kinds of wonderful stuff, did not do enough interaction with all the people that were doing wonderful stuff out in the parishes and schools. Okay? So the parishes and schools are all doing wonderful social service things. I mean, everybody here, if you go to your parish, there's lots of good stuff going on. We have a big central agency that does all these wonderful things as well, and they weren't talking to each other. I mean, they just didn't know it. So when I came on board at Catholic Charities, I started what's called the Parish and School Program, all right? Basically, it's just to go out and engage the parishes and schools in service and say, how can we help you? How can we work together? I'd go to schools and they all have their list of things to do for the kids. Got to do service hours, and you got to have so many service hours a year. And I'd say, well, what are you, we go to the high school and say, well, what are you doing? And they give me the list of things, and it would be some clinic and Martha's Table and all these wonderful places that are great stuff. But there wasn't one, we have 58 different programs within 5 miles, and they didn't, none of them were they helping out with. And that was the agency's fault. That wasn't the parish's and school's fault. It was just set up that way. So my job is to go out into the parishes and into the schools and say, how can we as an agency help you serve God's people in a better way? So if anybody here has something they want to do and needs some help, I come with 2 things, okay? I come with human resource. Basically it's me, and I got a couple other people that work with us. And we can help do things. We can organize meetings. We can start AAs. We can do things. And we have a little bit of money, all right? Because my boss is real good at raising money. So I have a little bit of money, not tens of thousands of dollars, but thousands of dollars that we can help start a program, seed money. Because you go to your pastor and say, hey, we want to start, fill in the blank, an AA program, an ESOL program, a program for disabilities. And it costs $4,000, and it's like, well, we got no money. And I get that. It's not in the budget. Well, that's why we're trying to stimulate and instigate some of this activity using, the talent and treasure and time of the wonderful, wonderful people that are sitting in the pews on Sunday. So that's what I do for Catholic Charities. And if you have something you want to do in your parish, it always goes through the parish. Talk to your pastor, say, hey, we got a group of people that want to fill in the blank, start a food pantry, have a transportation ministry, start an AA program. There's a whole list of stuff, and we don't care. It's whatever you want to do. And then, there's some people that help. We have some professionalism that can help get it started, and a little bit of money to get it started. So thank you. It's a great question. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
A lot of people don't want to start something, like give up their time now. What's an easy, no barrier entry volunteering?
Thank you. There's lots of things out there. At Catholic Charities, where I work, we have a whole list of things. If you go to our webpage, www.catholiccharitiesdc.org, hit the volunteer tab. There's group activities and there's single activities. And there's all kinds of things you can get involved in. Andrew mentioned earlier, one of the things that we started, in the last couple of years, and it's been very popular, we call it the Cup of Joe program, after a fellow named Joe Roberts. I don't know if anybody here knew Joe. Joe died of cancer a few years ago, and his friends wanted to memorialize him, so they helped fund this program. But at Catholic Charities, we have what are called low barrier shelters. A low barrier shelter is where you go if you got nowhere else to go. So you're a street person and you got to go in at night. And the way these things work, and we have about 1,200 people asleep in these every night, is that you can come in at 7 at night, but you have to leave at 7 in the morning. And there's a reason for that, but I won't get into it. So when they leave, they have nothing to eat. So we were putting together little breakfast packs to provide to these people. So it's become, you do the numbers. If you got 1,200 people a night, you need 30,000 of these things a month. So we need a lot of people to help put them together, and so that's an entry level. That's an example of an entry level program that anybody can do. You can do it by yourself. You can do it with 3 friends. You can do it with 50 friends. We did it at Visitation High School last year for 530 young ladies. Made breakfast. We made like 12,000 breakfasts in 1 hour. So. So we could. That's the kind of entry level thing. But what I'd encourage you to do, and that's a good example of one. There's lots of things like that, and some of them are deep. Some of them are mentoring programs for those that are coming out of incarceration or have substance abuse issues and are in treatment, and they just need a mentor. So that there's all the way from that, all the way to just putting together some breakfast packs. Thanks. Anybody else?
Why did you start with Catholic Charities? How did God touch your life to go that way?
It's a great question. I was blessed very early in life with finding my soulmate, so I got married very early. I had my 4 children, and they're all married. So I was pretty young, and I had done the corporate thing, and I just decided I didn't want to do that anymore. And I mentioned it, Monsignor Enzo, our Father John, is an old friend, and I mentioned to him, and he basically presented me with an option, and as soon as he said it, sort of like when somebody told me about the diaconate, I was like, boom, that's it. I love that. And I've been very, very blessed to do it now for 3 years. So sometimes you get kicked in the head, and it wasn't like a discernment thing. He just said, hey, you want to work for me? And I said, yes. All right.
What advice do you have for someone who doesn't necessarily have that aha moment like you had?
Yeah. And believe me, I mentioned this before, and people say, I want one, Okay, I'm sorry. So Jonathan asked, what about if you didn't have that aha moment? What if what if you haven't had that epiphany that wow, God is real. He's real. You can feel him, you can touch him, you can see him. It's just you can't not deny his presence. It's so evident in your life, and then it goes away, but you can remember what it was like. If you don't have that, just keep looking. Just keep looking. Be open to it. It doesn't happen to everybody. I'm incredibly blessed with it, but you still need that lifestyle. You still do those 3 things: priest, prophet, and king. Just keep doing it. Keep being open to it. And I think for those of us that aren't real bright like me, you get kicked in the head with it. I think for other people that do it, that you can sort of get it slowly. God touches us all in different ways. And I think for those that are actively praying and actively being charitable to people and actively living that Christian lifestyle, it just grows in you more and more and more. So that's what my advice would be, is if you haven't had that aha moment, just keep living as a priest, prophet, and king, and it's going to grow inside of you. Well, I can play a couple tunes if you'd like. I do that. Usually when I'm on a bar, I'm doing this. It's been a hobby and an avocation for a long time, and I like to write songs. So I'll offer a couple up to you here. This first one is about a young guy that basically is having trouble with life in general. And so, he's struggling with a bunch of things, so he decides to just take a day off and go by himself and do a bottle of wine and a backpack and a sandwich, and he went up, near Hagerstown and got on the Appalachian Trail there and just started walking. Just to get away from things, clear out his head a little bit. And when he was up there, he when he sat down, he was hanging out and just, enjoying the nature and all. And an old dude came walking down the trail, and they sat there, and over a bottle of wine, they solved all the world's problems. It's called The Long Trail. I hope you like it. I'm sitting on the hillside, rubbing at my feet, I'm gonna rest my bones. Long drawn a cigarette, 25 miles from home. Bottle of wine and I'll spend some time, drink it slow, yeah. Think about a girl I knew a while ago. Come out here to rest my mind, open up my soul. Looking for an honest man I thought I used to know. Lean against a pine and listen to the wind and listen to the flowers grow. And it's a long, long way to go. And it came an old man walking down the trail, he was tall and lean. He smiled at the side, opened up his pack and he sat right next to me. Said, I'll share your wine, I'll share your scene, I'll share you a thought or two. I realized the more he said, the less I knew. He talked of love, the hurt, the kind he knew so well. A silly little midnight stroll with the barmaid swore he'd never tell. He told me 35 ways just to pass the day when you thought there was nothing to do. And it's a long, long way to go. He said, I started out life when I was 17, they sent me off to war. I've never been further than 100 miles from my southern Maryland farm before. I grew up fast with a European lass and she showed me all the rules. I learned that love can be quick and war can be cruel. Well, a good man died, a lonesome death in a land so far away. The sergeant in the service said I knew him well, and the priest said, let us pray. The family back home didn't say a thing, they didn't even want to know. And it's a long, long way to go. Then I found me a lady, and I found me a lover, and I found me a friend for life. Green eyes, auburn hair, maybe time to let her call her wife. Had us a baby, and we had us another, and we had us a battle or two. God bless her soul, she loved me more than I knew. Then long ago on a rainy night, I remember what she said. He's our only son, they gotta leave him alone, he'll never leave his infant bed. But they took my boy and they sent him away and he never made it home. Now his name's on the jet black Vietnam Memorial Stone. Well, the sun's going down and the wind's picking up and I'm running out of things to say. Wine's all gone, gonna head for home, think I'm gonna call it a day. Left my friend by the side of the road, he wasn't going anywhere. And as I started off, his words were chosen with care. He said, boy, son, let me leave you with the thought. Whoever your God is, tune him in, you better think about what you got. When you call it a day and the night doesn't come, he's the only one left to you. And it's a long, long way to go. It's a long, long way to go. I'll end with this one. Thank you, guys. You guys are great. Thanks, a good job. Give a big round of applause for everybody here. Huh? They're doing good. It's a song about Little Willie. Little Willie got himself in all kinds of trouble because he told people, I love you. Hey, Little Willie, walking down the street, you got a problem on your mind. What's that funny game you've been playing? Talk to the people that you see on the street. How do you do? I love you. Trouble started when you went into school and you went outside to play. The girls all thought you strange, the boys yelled queer. Only one tell them what you had on your mind, and this is what you'd say. I love you. Hey, little Willie, walking down the street, you got a problem on your mind. What's that funny game you've been playing? Talk to the people that you see in the street. How do you do? I love you. Needed some money, so you went for a job, and the boss then sat you down. Boy, I look at you thinking, why are you here? I'll work real hard and I do my best, and the greatest thing of all, I love you. Hey, little Willie, walking down the street, you got a problem on your mind. What's that funny game you've been playing? Talk to the people that you see on the street. How do you do? I love you. Little Willie finally made it home, and the big boss sat him down. Boy, I like your style, I'm glad you're here. I tell you what, Lord, I don't know much, but one thing I do know, I love you. Hey, little Willie, walking down the street, you got a problem on your mind. What's that funny game you've been playing? Talk to the people that you see in the street. How do you do? I love you. I love you. I love you. Thank you all very much. All right. Drink some beer. Have some fun. All right.